From the Buying Space Channel, good morning to all of you. I am pre coffee. My coffee is brewing. My breakfast is microwaving. So I won't be able to eat or drink until the live is over. So this will not be a long live. Just saying. Last night, I aired a Bible reading from Luke chapter 19, the first part. That was about Zacchaeus. And Zacchaeus is one of those stories. I'm always talking about, the things that we heard in Sunday school as children from the Bible. And if I come across a passage that I'm not familiar with, and it's a little weird, or it goes off the path of what you would want to have a conversation with children about, I mention that. But Zacchaeus is one of those stories that we all, if we went to Sunday school at all, you heard about. And it's a sweet story about Jesus saving a horrid little man who was a tax collector. And if you get a chance to go back and watch it, please do. Today, I put a thumbnail of my mother on my live. After I did that, I found out that my aunt had died. So maybe tomorrow there'll be a thumbnail of my aunt, and I will think about what I'm going to say about my aunt. My mother's still alive. She's 83 and she has Parkinson's. And when I was a wee little baby, my mother worked for C&P Telephone Company. And she had this, if you look at the picture before you come in, she had this switchboard in front of her with little holes. And she would take this plug type instrument and she would put the plug in the hole over here when it lit up, when that number lit up, because they were like on the telephone trying to call someone, and they had to ask the operator to connect them physically. So she would have another cord when the person told her who she was calling, and she would have to plug that plunger like type thing, that connector, into the hole of the person they were calling. And she did this on the second floor of a building on Main Street. And they had no central heat and air, and they had fans in the windows. And what happened was flies and insects would come into the room. And one morning, my mother she had connected to the person that was trying to call the other person, the call in, right? And the person had told her what he wanted, who he wanted to call. So she put that plunger in that little hole, but a fly had landed on it. And so my mother was like, "Well, excuse me, sir, but there's a bug in your hole." That's what she told the guy. I'm hoping somebody sees this on the replay and laughs about that. But that's the story behind that picture where my mother worked for the telephone company. I had to also, for the last several lives, or actually for weeks, been talking about the story behind the Summersville Dam. If you haven't heard it yet, oh well. But I told it the other day because that story involves the Army Corps of Engineers. And I didn't have a real good train of thought that day, or much any other day. But anyway, that day I had lost my train of thought because maybe I was talking to Chad or something else happened. So anyway, that story involves the Army Corps of Engineers' decision not to name the dam after the town that was covered up. but to name it Summersville Dam, which is this town that was next to the dam. Very nice community. So, anyway, the reason I told it again was to tell this story, but then I didn't tell this story. So, here we go. This story is about two gentlemen that lived on a river in Louisiana, and they were fishermen. And one was on one bank of the river and one was on the other. And the river went through, and neither one of them had boats. And they would talk to each other at first, and they were okay with each other at first. But one day, Buford got mad at Clarence. And here Buford was on this side of the river, Clarence was on this side of the river. And so it got to the point where Buford was constantly threatening Clarence. Now, those of you in the reseller community, you know that Clarence is near and dear to our heart. Johnny K. Henry's reseller talks about Clarence, that he loves Clarence, but he's going to the Clarence section. So if you're from Louisiana, the Clarence section, you pronounce it Clarence. You're going to the Clarence section to get you some goods, okay? But this man's name was Clarence, and his across the river neighbor, Buford, hated him. But he wasn't afraid of him. So Clarence would be like, Buford, be like, Clarence, I'm going to beat you up. I'm going to beat you up. And Clarence would be like, come on, come on. But it was brave, not very brave to say that, having a river in the middle between the two of you. So one day, here's the part where the Army Corps of Engineers comes into play. They decided to build a bridge across the river. So Buford's like, oh, I'm finally going to get my chance. And he told everybody in his community, and like his whole family started hating on the entire family and, Clarence and his whole family. So it's like a feud situation developing. And so it took months, and they finally finished the bridge. The Army Corps of Engineers finally finished the bridge. And every day it was like, Buford's like, I'm going to come get you, Clarence. I'll come get you. And Clarence was like, come on, come on. So anyway, the day came. The bridge was finished. And Buford's wife put on his coat and gave him some last minute advice. Who knows? My advice would be like, you're not going over there. You're not going to do this. But his woman was more supportive in whatever he wanted to do. But anyway, so Buford's going across that bridge. He sees something. He gasps. He runs back home. And his wife is like, what's wrong? What's wrong? He said, there's a sign up. This is Clarence. 9 foot 10 inches. Okay, I'm going to get to you, sweetie, while you let that soak in. I've got two people here lurking. You can certainly say good morning if you want. I'm going to have a Dee Dee sweetie while you all think about saying good morning. I told two really good stories this morning. I get these from Virtual Shopkeeper Dee Dee. And these are lemon pound cake sweeties. I've received good morning, Landshark Picker. I know you're asleep. It seems that everybody else has more better things to do than check on me this morning. It's still Kiss a Shark Week. I hope you've informed Sabrina. your lovely wife that it's Kids of Shark Week. Went to the post office yesterday, and I got a package from Johnny. I didn't get any more DD Sweeties, but I got some containers, not from DD, but from D. And the containers I got from D, who used to be D's Creations, but now is Daisy's Creations, who is not DD Virtual Shopkeeper DD. Anyway, those containers, DD Sweeties can go in. So DD Sweeties are going to go in D's containers, or Daisy Creations containers. And I got packages from Jess Groves, and who is the Butterfly Queen, and her fiance, Elise, the Spider Queen. So I got those two packages. And let me see, who else did I get a package from? Oh, I got a package from Terry. Terry is Uniques by the Creek. And the first packages, even though I have packages that were here before those that I need to open, are the ones from Terry, Uniques by the Creek, and Johnny Cajun Roots Reseller, because they contain food. And I like food. And tomorrow, the weekend starts, and I'm going to have me some fun with some edibles, some treats for the weekend. What are you doing this morning, Craig, besides waking up? I haven't had my coffee or breakfast either. We started late around here. Well, we just did. There have been a couple of things that have happened. After I announced that I was going to do a live this morning, which made me not want to do a live, but here I am. I'm doing a live, and I don't know why my audience tanked so bad from dismissing yesterday. You ever get that feeling that something's going on that nobody's telling you about? And I've got that feeling right now. But you know all about those feelings, Craig. We emailed each other, about 3 years ago about some of those feelings. But anyway, this book I got from Angela Isaac. And it's a Reader's Digest. It's one of those books that has a little bit of everything in it. Let me see if what the category is stated. Oh, it broke. I knew it was breaking. The binder broke when I just opened it. I mean, it was just ready. It's dry. The person's name that used to own this book's in here. Bouts with Spouses. I'm not going to read that section. I don't want to. Is this whole book about fun and laughter, treasure of household of humor? Okay. So we have drawings by there's not really chapters. There's just like sections. I haven't read any of these stories yet. Well, this page is coming out. Oh my goodness, just touching it, it's falling apart. Okay. Book, Line, and Sinker. Anglers All. Good morning. About to read a fishing story from Reader's Digest. Let's see who we have in here. Good morning, Jennifer. I'm so glad you are here and I can see you. Bingo. You're in the wrong chat, Craig. Oh my goodness. You can stay here though. Good. Hello, Scarlett. I about said good morning. I don't know what was going on the other day either. I've got a friend who's a prepper and he says politically incorrect things. And sometimes when I try to go into his room, I have to hit continue over and over and over because it gives me this warning about content. It's like, please, we should have freedom of speech. I mean, I'm not saying anything crazy today or anything along the lines of government conspiracy or supporting some political candidate over another or anything like that. Uh, I started out by telling, did a reading from the Bible. But anyway, I'm going to do a reading from this Reader's Digest book that I got from uh, Angie's Vintage and Resale. So it says, hook, line, and sinker, anglers all. After several hours of fishing, little Patty suddenly threw down her pole and exclaimed, I quit. Why, Patty, what's the matter? Asked her mother. Well, mother, she answered, I just can't seem to get waited on. That would be frustrating if you went to that river with that fishing pole expecting service. Good morning, Toochman. How you doing? I mean, Toochman, not Toochman. It's like I'm making it a category of people, Toochman. But this is a gorgeous little book. But as soon as I brought it out of the box, the binding started doing its thing. But, she full disclosed it was vintage. But this is very cracked, and now the crack has completed all the way down. So I need to do something to repair this binding. I had decided, when you get things in the mail, when you get vintage things, you have to decide, well, do I want to use this and devalue it, or do I want to sell it? So I had kind of decided I wanted to read from it. I want to do a few. I mean, I'm doing 4 Bible readings a week, but I wanted to do just a regular reading from a book on occasion. TJ, if he's here, had requested that I read a children's book last week, which I did. I read a children's book. So I think everybody in here is connected to each other. Somebody needs to wake Craig up. Good morning, Craig. Are you awake? Oh, he's asking who Jennifer is. Yes, Jennifer's our wonderful mod for almost all of our channels. We have some other good mods, but Jennifer's like the OG mod. But I was supposed to get a package from David Lynn, Principal Prepper, and I went to the post office yesterday. It was not there. So he's supposed to send me the tracking number, but the rest of my packages arrived. Well, there's some still in process of arriving. Tooch Man, I received your package more than several days ago. I got it, and then that was my, not yesterday, but the trip before. I received your package, and it's rather heavy. Oh, that's right. I emailed you. I told you about that already. I've developed the habit now, instead of having my regular mail call where I talk about what packages I've received, I'll make just like a community page or post that lists the packages I've gotten. And I've also have stated on my lives, done my mail calls on my lives. So I already announced at the beginning of this when no one was here that I got packages from Dee, who is now, instead of Dee's Creation, is Daisy's Creations. And I got a package from Jess, the butterfly queen, and Elise, the spider queen, and who else was it? Well, Johnny, and there was another person. Oh, I have no memory. But anyway, I have been going in when people are on live. Oh, I know. Now you got to get up for me. Oh, the dregs. Do I need to send you a sympathy card, Craig? But anyway, so yesterday on the Home Day auction, Stephanie, the Groves Emporium, was there. Dee was there. Johnny was there. Everybody was there that I had received a package from or their mother. So I just went ahead and dropped it in the chat. Oh, by the way, and I did that with Titchman the other week. When he was online, I'm like, I got your package. And he's like, oh, great. So I think people feel relieved anymore because post office, well, it's post office. And, I don't know if I have it around here anymore, but Angela Isaac sent me a package and post office sent it back. So, and then she sent it back to me. So that's how things go. Stephanie actually had her own auction last night on her channel. So she's still around and she's still being a mentor for Jess Groves, which is her daughter, and her daughter's fiance, Elise, who goes by Elise Groves already. And they also sell, and I buy from them. Elise is kind of an apothecary, and she makes scented candles and that kind of thing. And her and Jess both sell jewelry. So this is my second purchase from them. So she's got her own little wheelhouse going on her channel where she's selling a lot of good stuff. Yep. On Tuesday, she has $2 Tuesday. I love the $2 Tuesday show. But her prices are really reasonable. The only problem I've had is the snow. The snow and the weather has been really horrible for the Groves family, and it's interrupted their shipping like it has everybody else's. But I think where they're at is a little further south than where they usually get, harsh snows, which makes it worse. Like, if you have snow and you're in Chicago and there's 3 foot of snow on the ground and there's ice and it rained the night before and there's a ½ inch ice or more and it's just all hazardous, well, it's Chicago. Everybody knows how to cope with that. If that happens in Atlanta, Georgia, people are losing their minds. They're shutting down the city, and people don't know how to drive on it. I mean, people just go out there and they want to stop their car and they just slam on their brakes and the car slides. That's what happens in ice and snow. So you have to start slowing down 100 feet before you need to stop. And people here do not have that patience. So it wasn't yesterday. It was Wednesday before, I think it was. Yeah, I know it was on Wednesday because it was my trash day. And just because the temperature, and we did not have snow here at all. We had sleeting rain, that slush-like rain. Marty laughed about that because, it's like slushies from the sky, But anyway, the garbage didn't run because it was a cold rain and it was under 32 degrees. And so we had to have garbage pickup on Saturday, and they didn't get the recycle. And, it's just our garbage is still not straightened out from that one day that it froze and it got below 30. Well, no, it was more than one day it got below 32. But that was the first day it got below 32, and it was raining, and they were worried about ice on the roads. And people, like I said, they just don't know how to drive in it here. So they shut the whole city down. including trash pickup. And, I've lived through, I don't know, over a dozen hurricanes here in Florida, where I've had to evacuate or move to another part of town, and or send Marty to somewhere, or evac Marty to a family member's home that maybe has a brick house, and I have this house has siding on it, and it's a mid-century modern house, so it's getting kind of old, but it doesn't have brick. So I'll send Marty away sometimes, and I'll stay here. And hurricanes, you just don't know. I mean, you get to that point where, okay, I've waited too long and I can't leave now. And fire rescue, if you've done that, they will not come get you. They will not risk the life of first responders to come get somebody that didn't evacuate. Of course, I've never stayed in my home when I've been told or ordered to evacuate. So, but I have, good morning, Run. How you doing? You've been one hurricane when you were traveling through Florida? Yeah, the snow, I mean, I don't know why, or even the threat of snow shuts this place down more than a Category 5 hurricane does. Well, just as much, I should say. Yeah. Should I call you Run or should I call you Jack? Because that appears to be part of your screen name, Jack, or Run. Or is it Run, Jack, Run? I remember reading a story about Run, Jack, Run when I was in first grade. The Jack and Jill series. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. Oh my goodness. Remember that after decades. Okay, Run is just fine. Where are you from, Run? I know pretty much everybody else in this chat and where they're from, and have talked to them a lot. And I know you've been in here before, but I don't know where you're from. I need to go check out your channel. Apologies for not doing that. I need to start a list of people that I need to go check out their channels, because what happens is when you run a live, people come in that don't normally watch your videos. Yeah, this is a thank you note from a reseller for making a purchase. And I'm going to write on the side that has writing on it. So I'm going to go ahead and write down your name and your tagline. Now, I know it says you're a jack of all trades, but what trades? Washington State. Well, I'm in Florida. We're like, draw a line between my place and your place, and where you've made a, diagonal line. But sometimes when I go back, I have problems finding the channel. There are quotation marks on that. Like I have a friend named Skeeter. If I look up Skeeter, I had problems finding Skeeter for a while. He was on Bob Anything's Possible channel. They're both fishermen. So when I would go to, actually I could go to Bob's Live and click on Skeeter's name. But when I first looked for Skeeter, it was all kinds of different results. Like right now, I can't find at least the Spider Queen, because there's so many Spider Queen channels. So it's crazy. But finally, I figured out that Skeeter was Skeeter and then _72. And once I knew that, it was easy to find his channel. So if you have, even though it won't light up as a link, if you put your at, like I caught on to that when they were doing that, when they first started doing that. And I got the at of buying space. So my channel's not like buying space 3,587 or a zip code. It's buying space. And I'm so happy that happened. And I'm very, very searchable. If you put in buying space, you almost always get me. But if you put if you can't find me immediately, you can put in buying space unboxing or buying space and enveloping, and you get me, just by adding that one word. So if you have like an at, see, I've been all over the United States, used to do road trips. Oh, that's exciting. When I was young, yes, Skeeter is cool. And him and Bob were on together last week ice fishing, and that was fun. They played off each other's excitement really well. Skeeter gets really excited and happy about stuff. And so anyway, when I was little, my dad was he was a rural route letter carrier, and the state we lived in, he had this thing where he would go to he'd want to find a road he'd never been on before. So every little country road, even dirt roads, on our Sunday drive, we would seek out little roads my dad hadn't been on before. And he'd been on a lot of roads. And so it was funny, like if we would go up some hollow in the middle of nowhere, and he would take the left fork of that road that turned into dirt, and then there was another fork, and then somebody had to go to the bathroom or we had to eat, and we came back out of that area and found a restaurant or restroom or whatever we needed. When we would not go back and go down the road to another road, we would go back up that road, and then we would take the first right fork and explore it completely, and then come back out. And sometimes there was no coming back out. Sometimes you ended up crossing a mountain into another community, and there were forks that were missed, and they'd end up back on a main road looking for a restroom or a restaurant or whatever we needed. So then he would go back across the mountain, and then he would take the left fork, and then he would take that right fork that was missed. I mean, we didn't miss a road. We didn't miss an inch of a road. Like if he did a turnaround in one driveway and there was another driveway to the left, sometimes we'd go back and hit that. I mean, I'm just telling you, he wanted to drive every inch of every road everywhere. It was fun though. It gave me, I probably was born with a sense of adventure, but it gave me, definitely ingrained in me, that sense of adventure. And him and his sister, Claudia, they had atlases. They had maps. I knew how to fold one of those awful maps that nobody knows how to fold together. That was a skill that I learned as a child. And I remember when I was 14 in my English book, and I'll never forget this day. I remember this to this day, and I was 14. We opened this page in the English book, and it had all the road signs. And good morning, Roll Call Cabin. And I had a friend that sat in front of me. His last name was Martin. And, well, I suspect we're related to the Martins in some way that we're not supposed to know how we're related to the Martins. I'm just saying. But anyway, I think he was my cousin. Anyway, not first cousin. Not my first cousin. Probably my second or third cousin. But anyway, I knew every one of those signs. And the teacher, I'll never forget the way she reacted to me. And, my friend in front of me, they were just astounded because I was the only one in the room that knew every one of those street signs and markers. And I didn't even, try to learn them. It's just that I had been on the road so much on those Sunday drives and motorcycle rides and all of that. And when I was 10, I got my own motorcycle and I explored on my own, which was kind of insane for a 10-year-old girl, but it was way back when we didn't have to worry that much about, people that were creepy. And it was probably perfectly safe. Matter of fact, it was a community where, if you went outside and you farted, by that evening, your daddy knew you went and stood outside and farted because everybody talked to everybody. And everybody was a parent to every child, or, cared about every child, literally cared about every child and everything that happened to everybody in that community. And that's the way it used to be. And so, I'm in kind of culture shock right now for the way things are now because it's not that way. And so, anyway, it taught me all those signs, even though I did not have any objective to learn all the road signs. I knew them just from personal experience. And I used to do crazy things like, out in the middle of nowhere all by myself. Nobody had cell phones, going and jumping a hill, or going up a really steep incline where, and I would turn over. I had accidents. And I would just get up. I had made an announcement on my Facebook page yesterday. I'm not going to go into the announcement because it's very, very sad. And I've been very distraught the last 12 hours over what's happened. But it's on my Facebook page. And anyway, I had a cousin that came in and commented. And she just did not understand what was going on. And I had tagged like 6 people in this post, and she still did not understand what had happened. So I was just like, dear cousin, God bless you. What can you say? But I remember this cousin, and she lived 2 doors or 3 doors down from my grandparents' grocery store and house. And when she was little, her father, good morning, Fishing with Flame. So good to see you. I told a little fishing story from Reader's Digest in the beginning of this. So you might want to, and I told a story about Clarence, who was a fisherman who wanted to scrap with his neighbor that lived across the river in Louisiana. But welcome in, welcome in. So it hit me later that this cousin that had lived 3 doors down from my grandparents' grocery store and house, her father was a strawberry farmer. And we always had fresh strawberries every year, so delicious. But she was out playing in the strawberry field when probably her father was driving the tractor. They all drove that tractor. I mean, starting at 10 to 12 years old, they were driving that tractor. But it was probably her dad that was driving it. And she was running along and she fell down. And the tractor wheel ran over her head. But it was the soil was being plowed up. So the dirt was probably, 6 to 10 inches thick, maybe thicker in places. I don't know if any of you have seen soil plowed up close, but, it becomes like little tiny hills of soil everywhere. So when the tractor ran over her head, her head was pressed down into that dirt. And so the tractor ran over her, and the thing was, she just popped up and looked around and took the mud off her face and started running around again. There was no emergency room. There was no, dad stopping to see what was wrong because the other kids were asking her, but she just, no physical exam, no doctor, no emergency room, no nothing. The tractor ran over her head. She popped up out of the ground like it was nothing. Matter of fact, when I watch Mulan, that movie Mulan, we've watched it repeatedly. Not recently, but when it came out Marty loved that movie, Mulan. And every time, the Mongolian army is coming after them, after Mulan and her small band of warrior friends, and the avalanche covers up the entire Mongolian army. But then, Genghis Khan or whatever the main character is, and the antagonist side, he just pops up out of the snow. And several, I think like maybe half a dozen, I don't remember exactly, all of these really tough guys pop up out of the snow like it was nothing. And it kind of reminds me of my cousin that got run over by a tractor. Because, it was like back then, people just were like, they knew home remedies and they knew. I mean, you just didn't take your child to the doctor every time something happened. And I remember my dad when I was, teenager and young adult, and I had become more aware of emergency medicine and, what could be done, the uses of penicillin. And it ended up I'm allergic to penicillin. But anyway, I would ask to go to the emergency room. And even though he had insurance, he did not want to take me to the doctor or the emergency room. He just didn't. It was just kind of like, okay. But back then, if parents do that today, if your child's run over by a tractor and somebody finds out and you don't take them to the doctor, you're going to have that knock on the door, to ask, why didn't you take your child to the doctor? We heard they got run over by a tractor. And we think that maybe there should be, I don't know, a head x-ray involved. I mean, this sounds so, thank you so much for the likes. Yeah, you can double tap on the screen and like the video or the live. So anyway, things have changed, and it used to be that, parents didn't have to do a lot, but at the same time, we got, home cooked meals. We lived in a cleaner environment. We were not on the internet. Matter of fact, people didn't have personal computers when I was young at all. When I think I was 10 years old, gosh, I'm getting old, telling old folks stories. Anyway, when I was 10 years old, that's when the calculator became available to the public. And I didn't have a personal computer until I was in my mid-20s. I had a cousin with a computer, and later I had a boyfriend with a computer that I would play on their computer. We would play Pong and Aviator. And Pong was these two little, like you had over here, you had a little white paddle. And over here, you had a little white paddle. And you have a line in between. And a little tiny ball would be bouncing back and forth. And you could play with a computer, you could play with a friend, but you just move the paddle up or down. And the computer moved the paddle up or down, or your friend over here. And you would bounce that ball back and forth, kind of like table tennis. Only it was just a little tiny white square was your paddle that moved up and down. And that's all it, yes. And then we had Aviator. Now, Aviator it was like string art. It have like the mountain would be there'd be a point and there'd be lines coming down that simulated the look of a mountain. And then you would have a runway with one line and one dotted line. And you actually, with Aviator, was kind of sophisticated compared to everything else that was available at the time. But you had the same instruments you would have on an airplane. And my boyfriend had what was known as a Trash 80. It was from a company called Radio Shack. I'm not sure Radio Shack still exists. But anyway, Craig, does Radio Shack still exist? You would know for sure. Craig buys, he's a reseller, and one of the things he buys is, or he used to buy several years ago, he had videos on buying Bose, BOSE, stereo equipment, which is high quality stuff. But anyway, with Radio Shack, the first one of the first personal computers became available to everybody that a bunch of people did buy was called Trash 80. And I can't remember what the trash, TRASH, stood for. It was like an abbreviation, but a nickname at the same time. But Aviator was available on that. And me and this boyfriend were going to West Virginia Institute of Technology. And we spent just as much time partying as we did going to class and studying. I'll just say that. And that's pretty typical of people, when they first go to college, especially if they're in a family that, they sheltered them. But, in a moral way, let's just say that. There wasn't even beer available ever in my house when I was a child. It just didn't exist. My parents didn't drink. They didn't watch dirty movies. They didn't smoke anything unusual. My dad smoked cigarettes, and that was the extent of anything that was in my house that you could say that people would take to a party. There wasn't even really Kool-Aid or punch a lot of times, unless it was a holiday. We would have punch with sherbet in it, like in one of those big bowls that you buy at a vintage auction now. But I don't know why I'm getting off on telling you all about how things were when I was little. But anyway, me and my boyfriend, we were inebriated one day. I'll just say that. I won't say on what. But and I started playing Aviator, and I flew. And you know how I told you that there was a point and lines would come down, there was a mountain. It was like, I flew underneath the continent. Evidently, the world in Aviator was flat because I went over the edge of it and did a 360 with my plane, and I was flying underneath the continent or the landmass that was in Aviator. And, we asked around to other people that had Trash 80s, to other people that had Aviator, and no one had heard of anybody ever doing that. And the thing was, I never could figure out how to do it again. Because, and eventually what happened, I was not able to get back on the top, and underneath there was no way to fuel. And so my little airplane died because there was no way to find fuel underneath the world. So, but anyway, I've always, for some reason, gone to the unusual in every normal situation. Of course, back then, having a personal computer, especially because we lived out in the country, we lived in a town out in the country. But anyway, it was just kind of unusual to have a Trash 80, to have a personal computer, to have Aviator. Matter of fact, when we asked around, we didn't ask around in our little hometown. We asked when we went back to college at West Virginia Institute of Technology, which was one of the top 10 engineering schools in the country at the time. WVU bought it out and closed it down. I ended up graduating from West Virginia State College, and I'm not saying any of this to brag, but here's some of the things that happened. WVU also bought West Virginia State College. And I'm very concerned that they're going to do with West Virginia State College what they did with West Virginia Institute of Technology, is close it down. So what happened with West Virginia Institute of Technology, they had a satellite campus, and they closed down the main campus, and they're now using the satellite campus. And everybody that attended West Virginia Institute of Technology went to school in Montgomery, West Virginia. And so that satellite campus was just kind of like, I don't know, it was just extra. Nobody went to it for a long time. But West Virginia State College, where I graduated, was the college that Katherine Johnson attended. Now, I don't know if any of you know the history of NASA, but the very first space flight where we landed on the moon, Katherine Johnson, who was an African American lady, did the mathematical calculations for the orbiting, and we would not have made it to the moon without her calculations. And about 5 or 6 years ago, right after they did the movie about Katherine Johnson's life, I can't remember the name of it right now, but they put a statue on that campus. And I've been wanting to go back and see the statue. I've seen pictures of it, but it makes me proud. My third great uncle, Nicholas Cabell, married his slave wife, which was not legal back then, and had, I think it was 13 children. 13 children. And they sent them to Ohio to be educated because they couldn't be educated uh, locally at that time. And then it was like 1889 or so. Those children came back and forth to this land. He wrote 4 wills so that his children would inherit this land because, they were half African American, half white. So, the neighbors around him got so infuriated by his relationship with his wife and all those children and them being rich and them sending them off to, school out of state and, just all of it. Just, it just made them all jealous and they were already hateful to start with. And so they hung him after he wrote his 4th will, but they were unable to take possession of the land from his widow. Oh, good, good, good. I'm glad to see a coffee channel here. I haven't had my coffee yet. But anyway, that was my third great uncle, Nicholas Cabell, who successfully left his land to his children who were mixed just after the Civil War, which was amazing. And I'm very proud of that branch of the family. I don't think they're very proud of me, though. I called one of my African American cousins one day. This was 30, 40 years ago. And I wanted to talk to him about his branch of the family because I was a genealogist and I wanted to get to know all of them. I had gone to the family cemetery. I knew the lady who had kept the cemetery. Her name was Ruth. And I can't remember her last name. It was probably Brown. But, and this was Professor Brown that I called. I think it was one of her children or grandchildren. And he's like, I don't really want to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, I understand that, but I'm not like, you know, everybody else. I'm not the typical white person. I'll be happy to embrace you as my family. And he still didn't want to talk to me. So, that was a sad day for me that he didn't want to, move on. I hadn't done anything in my lifetime that was prejudiced. In fact, I was, it was kind of liberal and unusual for me to want to talk, to want to gap that bridge at that time, because it was a long time ago. And it was when people didn't make those associations and there was, a lot more, well, 10 years ago, I could have said a lot more discrimination than there is now, but there's a lot of discrimination that's come back, unfortunately. So I never did make a connection with that branch of the family. I'm connected to a lot of other branches of my family, and I do have some African American cousins now from not my generation, but the generation after. My first cousin's children marrying mixed race people or African American people. And, there's full communication there, just like there is with the rest of my cousins. But it is, he had grown up in a generation that I guess if he talked to white people, he ended up regretting it. And I don't think he would have regretted it with me. or his family would have, but we'll never know because he shut the door hard. And I understand it, but it's still kind of unfortunate that I couldn't have, like when I was commuting to that campus. I worked during the day and I was commuting at night. It's still a shame that I couldn't have been able to drop by and meet everybody, and discuss what had happened, and, find out if they had any stories that they could share about, what had happened in that generation, or even with the grandchildren of my third grade uncle, you know, and aunt, and to know, their stories. I'm sure it was rich. I mean, I watched all of Alex Haley Roots when I was young, the whole miniseries. And if you all are not familiar with Alex Haley, he wrote a wonderful book series. I don't know if it was one book or two books or 10 books. I don't remember because I didn't read the books. But they took those books and they made it a mini series on TV. It's called Roots. And it's a very enriching story about his ancestors and what happened when his, I don't know how many great grandfather came over to America, was brought over in chains, and the story of their entire family to him. And he was in a generation ahead of me. He would have been in the generation that when people were in college, the hippies were running around, and Martin Luther King Jr. was alive, and Kennedy. But he was able to go to college and be a writer and be a very successful person, a very intellectual. And he did his family tree, and he made a mini series. He wrote a book and made a mini series about his family. Uh, Lou Gossett is another person that helps people trace their family trees. He helps celebrities do that, and it's very revealing, some of the things he finds out about people. And I love watching his series on PBS. I don't get PBS right now, but when I had, before I moved here, I got PBS and I would watch that all the time. Just very fascinating. Of course, I was into genealogy when I was 10 years old. But anyway, I've probably run everybody off. If you're still here, raise your hand. Um, just give me a wave. But nobody's kind of commenting on my experiences I had uh, growing up during the time that civil rights were expanding in this country. I guess I didn't feel like I said enough on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And, you know, I've been thinking about all that lately. And we're coming up to Black History Month. And I always on Facebook made a lot of posts about Black History Month and Native American history. And I don't do that so much anymore, not because I'm not interested anymore, not because I don't believe in equality just as much now as I did, a decade ago. But since I have a YouTube channel and I do all these Bible readings and unboxings, I'm focused on the sellers, the buyers, the products. I'm focused on, the scripture. And, I read the scriptures and I study, and, I try to find additional information to add, or look at other, like Charles Spurgeon's view of this passage. And I could just, most videos that I do Bible readings, I'll do a couple of hours of research on it. And I used to not do that, but I don't like to do a Bible reading anymore and not do that, because sometimes you end up in the middle of a Bible reading, you come across a word that you don't know at all, and it could change the meaning of the scripture, or you come across an event that you're unaware of, or an awkward that involves questionable morality, but you have to put it in context. So it's all kind of interesting. And I like studying the scriptures. So a lot of that takes up my time. On Monday, my Facebook group called Old Monday, I used to put every odd holiday. So this year I had kind of decided to incorporate odd holidays into my lives. Like it's Kiss the Shark Week this week. And Monday was National Bubble Wrap Day, which is, entertaining to those people that are resellers. And oh my gosh, I've been on for an hour, but my future goals are to go ahead and get some of those odd holidays to discuss on here and post them on Monday again. So that was something I did in the past that I haven't done in a while that I'm going to reincorporate into both YouTube and into the Facebook group. So, and I don't know if if people are gonna be interested, if I'm gonna hear later in other chats that, oh, by the way, it's National Kiss a Shark Week. That would be great. If my platform spread information about odd holidays. But I've been on here an hour. Oh my gosh, I don't think this has happened before. This is exciting. You all have a wonderful and blessed day.